It is coming up to 13 minutes to 8. The latest property data is out and figures show that though there is more activity in the market, listing numbers are low and some regions have seen little movement in median prices. So demand in there, but it seems not the supply. Here to chat about other possible pathways to your own home, Sam Stubbs from Simplicity. Sam, always good to have you in the studio. I just want to start though with those numbers. So what is happening with our housing market at the moment?
Well, look, you've got basically supply of houses is what matters, right? We've got this increasing demand. You know, we had 65,000 people, more people in the country this year than last year. They need a place to live, right? We've got to build enough houses. The private market typically produces about the same number of houses every year, so you can kind of rely on them for some of them. The government, though, governments for the last 30 years have underbuilt state housing, right? We stopped building houses in the 1980s, and that has really been, that's the core of the problem, just not enough houses for the government. You've also got community housing providers out there, right? They've got huge hearts but small checkbooks. Yeah. They need more money because they do some really cool stuff. And I think that there's a missing component overseas, which is just starting now, which is KiwiSaver funds building long-term homes to rent. You know, we've started doing it, others will follow. If you get those four stools working, you know, you can look at countries like Germany or Denmark. They don't have a housing problem because they have basically supply coming from those four areas. So the private market's working, government is not. And, you know, I think the big question we should be asking our politicians this election is, how many houses are you going to build and when? Because, you know, everything else is sort of mucking around on the edges. The fundamental issue is how many houses you're going to build. We've got to fund community housing providers to build more of their houses, and you've got to get KiwiSaver funds, you know, basically building more long-term rent. We can solve this problem. This is a solvable problem. Elsewhere in the world it has been solved, but right now we've got, you know, it should be a four-cylinder engine. It's kind of working on one cylinder only at the moment.
I'm not sure whether you said this, but how many houses should we be building a year?
Well, look, 20,000 houses in New Zealand wear out every year. Right, they literally just, you know, fall over or wear out. So we have to build 20,000 homes a year just to stand still. Then we have to build the houses for the net increase in population every year. We also have a social housing register of about 25,000 people waiting. So we've got to build tens of thousands of houses each year extra over and above what we're already doing. Now, we can do it. The government can fund a state housing program like it used to. KiwiSaver managers can start building large amounts of long-term rent. We could fund the community housing providers to do what they're already doing, just a lot more of it. In the private market, the mums and dads, investors, they'll carry on doing what they do. If we get those four things right, we'll solve the problem. But, you know, we've got to start. So all of these housing policies right now, they're not addressing the core issue. You've got to increase the number of houses in New Zealand. Everything else is just noise.
And on the back of that, I've got about a minute to go, but you talked about overseas solutions, but you also talked about build to rent, which is something Simplicity is doing. So talk to me about
absolutely.
that.
Look. So you have overseas in a country like Germany, pension funds build hundreds of thousands of homes for long-term rent. It becomes another option for housing in New Zealand. Right now, if people rent, you know, sometimes it's very short-term, their house gets sold from under them, right? There's a lot of people in Germany, for example, who've lived multi-generations in the same rental house owned by the same pension fund. We're going to start doing that in New Zealand. We've actually started doing it, and in the first 2 years, we've got about over 1,000 homes now that we've either built or building or planning. So you can do that in scale, and we could get a lot more supply. It should just be another option. It should be an option for retired people too, right? Because the ultimate fence at the top of the cliff for all the social problems we have is a warm, dry, secure home, right? Built long-term renting is another option that's available overseas. We could make it available here.
Sam, it's always a pleasure to have you with us here in the studio. Sam Stubbs from Simplicity. Tēnā koe. Thank you.
Thank you.